Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and today's video. So in today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about some palettes that I am so glad that I received for 2020, and I wanted to share them with you guys and let you guys know how much I enjoyed playing with them. And some of the palettes I haven't used too much, but I have an idea of what the formula is like. I really enjoyed how the looks turned out. So I'm going to let you guys know, and I hope you guys enjoy today's video. Thank you for tuning in. Bye. So this is the ColourPop Sweet Top palette, and I'm going to show you guys the inside of the palette. So this is what the palette looks like. This is an 18-piece palette, and I really love every single shade in here. This is one of the palettes that ColourPop released. I believe it was last year that they released the palette, and this palette has been a palette that I can't stop thinking about. This is a palette that I've used a couple of times already, and I enjoyed the looks that I did come up with it. I played with it about 3 times, and I just really love the quality of the palette a whole lot. Be mindful, this is a pressed pigment palette, so it may cause some staining, but that hasn't happened with me. I really enjoy the formula of this palette. I felt as if they stepped up from the Yes Please palette, which they released in 2018. I loved the Super Shock Shadow formula that they had in the palette, which the Super Shock Shadow that they have in here, I think it's this color called Side to Side that is in the Super Shock Shadow formula. And I enjoyed the palette thoroughly. I love how pigmented it is. I love how blendable it is. I really like how the colors show up on my skin tone. And if you guys already know, I fall into the medium to deep category. So it can be really hard for me to find shadows like this that would appear on my eyes and be really pigmented. But I had no issues with this palette so far. I haven't gotten around to using some of the shades in the palette as of yet, but so far I have enjoyed this palette so much, and I feel that the shimmers in this palette have been a lot better than the Yes Please palette. I feel as if when they made more newer palettes, such as the Lilac You Allowed, or the Just My Luck palette, or the Just My Pleasure palette, or the Blue Moon palette, I feel as if they stepped up the quality in their matte formula and also in their shimmer formula. The only thing that I will say is that I don't think that they should release pressed glitters in every single palette, just because not a lot of people do use them. I use them sometimes if I want to be a little bit extra, but most of the times I find myself using just shimmers, and that is it. But I really enjoy this palette, and I have no complaints about this palette. So the next palette I would like to talk about is the Nomad palette by Juvia's Place. And this is the inside of the palette. This is a very beautiful fall toned palette. And this is my first time trying Juvia's Place this year. Now, I really enjoy the formula of their shimmers. Their mattes blend out really beautifully. I was able to build up the shadows to how I would like to build them up. They're very pigmented already, but if I want to make it a little bit more deep and have more dimension, I feel that I'm able to do that. There's no kickback in the palette that I've experienced. I feel that this palette has the quality that I'm looking for. The shimmers are very buttery. The shimmers are very nice. They have a punch to them. I don't have to be building it up so much. And what I also like is that I don't have to go in with setting spray in order for these shimmers to show up. So I really love this palette, and I didn't expect to love it at first because usually I don't go for cooler toned palettes or for palettes with so much greens in it, because as you guys know, I don't really do a whole lot of green looks. But this palette I've enjoyed so far, and I really love using this whenever I want something a little bit more cooler toned with a hint of green in it without it actually being green. So I really recommend this palette, and I'm surprised by the formulation, and I can't wait to try more palettes from Juvia's. So the next palette I would like to talk to you guys about is also another Juvia's Place palette, and this is the Tribe palette. And this is the palette that I have on my eyes today. I took this shade right here on the crease, and I have this shade right here on the lid. And I'm going to swatch this shade for you. This is my favorite shade in the palette. So here's the swatch. You guys can see it. It's very, very beautiful. I really love how it stands out. This is my all-time favorite gold shimmer. And I can't emphasize it as much. It's just, I feel like it's my perfect kind of gold. Next to another gold that I'm going to show you guys very soon. This palette, the formula is immaculate. I really love the quality. It is like the Nomad palette. I feel that this palette has better quality though. I really just enjoy this palette, and I never thought I would. The only thing about this palette I'm kind of like meh about, and I'm going to show you guys the palette one more time. I wish that there was a little bit more transition shades in this palette. That if I wanted to do something a little bit more softer and not as green, that I can do it. And I typically would use this palette as an accent palette. So I would grab the Urban Decay palette, or I will grab another neutral palette, and I would use this palette with a neutral palette side by side if I want a more everyday look. But I really enjoy the quality of this palette. I think that the quality is really, really nice, and I would rank it to be a little bit higher than some of my other palettes that I have in my own collection. So I'm really pleased with the formula. I'm really pleased that it's also an affordable brand. A lot of their palettes are like $20, $14, somewhere around that price point, and you can also be able to get them on sale. So that's really great. So if you ever find this palette and you're interested in it, I feel that it's worth the $20. Now the next palette I wanted to talk about is the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. I know a lot of people do not care for Urban Decay and their color story and their quality or anything like that, but I really enjoy this palette. Now, I have never tried Urban Decay before. This is the palette, by the way. I enjoy the quality of this palette a whole lot. I really like the color story. I have never purchased from Urban Decay because a good amount of their palettes were boring. They were unappealing to me, despite the fact that I love neutrals. But this palette and one other palette that is not going to be mentioned on here, I just had to have this palette. I had to have it. I've been obsessed with this palette. This palette has been on my mind since it got released back in 2017. I just could never afford it at the time, and then finally it went on sale for $24 and I was able to purchase it, and this palette is amazing. Now I want to swatch this shade right here called Queen, and I want to show you how it looks like. It's beautiful. It's stunning. I really like these mossy, greeny type shadows. Here's the swatch right here. I really love it. It's pretty. It's stunning. And there's one other shade I really like too, called Amber. And I'm going to swatch that for you guys. It's just this beautiful, like bronzy toned shadow. Here's the swatch up here. I just can't get enough of this palette. I hope to do more looks with this palette. This is a very, very beautiful palette. It's great for the fall. It's great for everyday looks. It's great for anything. I hope that for 2021, I could pull this palette out a little bit more and just play around with it a lot more. but I really love the quality. I think that it is worth the $24 that I spent. I wouldn't say I would pay $49 for this, but if it wasn't on sale, I don't think I would have gotten the palette to begin with. So that's just my thoughts on that. But I really enjoy this palette, and I just want to use it some more. So the next palette I'm going to talk about is the Tati Beauty Textured Neutrals palette. This is her first palette that she ever released, and I'm going to open it up for you and show you the inside. So you have your neutrals, and then you have your color in here. The only thing that I will say is that this is not a neutral palette, because you have your berry tones in here and you have these warmer tones in here. And that's the only thing that I would say I don't like about the palette, is it's not your typical neutral palette. But I really love this palette. I played with it a couple of times. This was another palette that I've been wanting since it got released last year. This palette blends like a dream. I just love that you get a variety in here and that it's organized. You have different finishes. You're able to create an array of looks. And so that's what I like about this palette. The quality is really, really good. I have experienced little to no fallout with this palette. This palette is worth the $50, and I just love the palette a whole lot. I did maybe about 3 or 4 looks with the palette already before. I did a look recently for Christmas with this palette, and I just enjoy this palette. I like the fact that it has a mirror. I like the fact that it's not too bulky. I just enjoy it. The only thing that I kind of need to work with is the glitters, because I can be a little bit finicky when it comes to it. And also the glitters are just, you know, something that I don't know if I'm going to be using it a whole lot yet, but I'm learning. But I just really love this palette a whole lot. Now, the next palettes that I'm going to talk about are the e.l.f. Bite Size palettes. I love these palettes. I love the quality. I'm going to swatch one of the shades from the pumpkin pie version of the palette. I can't open this. But I really love this shade right here. I love both of these shimmers, but I love this shimmer a whole lot because it looks so wet on the lid. I'm gonna swatch it. Where can I swatch it? Right here. I love this shade. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I love this shade. I also love this one. And what's so amazing about these palettes is that the shimmers look really wet. And so it gives this really nice shine to it. And I just love using these shadows. I think this is the best quality shadow. This can be comparable to a high-end shadow. And so I really enjoy it. I love using it. And I just want to keep using this palette forever. If I can only choose one shadow to use, it's the pumpkin pie palette. So I enjoy it. I have fun using it. And I just can't get enough. I will buy it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So the next palette that I wanted to talk to you guys about is the Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity palette. So I'm going to show you guys the palette the best I can, because there was some shipping issues with the palette. So if you guys can see it, this is how the palette looks on the inside. And my gosh, this palette is just so beautiful. I try to salvage this palette as much as I can, because due to shipping, the palette came smashed. I did get a replacement, but I did ended up giving it to somebody else because I just didn't feel right keeping both of the palettes. But there's this beautiful, 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 stunning gold shade in here. I'm going to swatch it for you guys and show it to you guys. So this shade right here, it's stunning. It's really beautiful. I want to take that and run that all over my lid. This is my first Pat McGrath palette, and I really love the shimmers in here. I just can't get enough of this palette, and I believe the hype when it comes to this palette, and I am hoping to create more looks with the palette. I just enjoy this palette so far. I may have done a review video, and I'll link it down below for you guys. And I just really love the shimmers in here. Now, I wish there was enough mattes in the palette, but other than that, the shimmer formula is just stunning. It looks very wet on the eye, and I just love how vibrant they are. You don't even have to go and wet your brush to be able to get the pigmentation out of this palette. So I really recommend them if you are willing to pay the $78 for the palette. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the looks that I come up with, and I'm really, really thankful that I got this for free. So I can't wait to share more looks with you guys on this palette. And if you want to see me do a tutorial on any palette, just let me know in the comment section, and I will be able to do some reviews for you. Now, I saved the best palette for last. This is the Amrezy times Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. Now, this is my favorite palette in the whole United States of America. This palette is stunning. I love this palette so much, and this palette is just, it's beautiful. This is my dream. This is my dream palette. It's everything I wanted in a palette. It's so beautiful. I had a friend make all these memes of me using this palette and me just drooling over this palette. I should be an ambassador for this palette because this palette is just stunning. The packaging is pink and it's sparkly, and the quality of the shadows are just so amazing. This is just hands down my favorite palette. I got my hands on it in, what was it, late October, early November. But girl, this palette is my favorite palette. Favorite. I love this palette more than I love my sister. That's just all I can say. Because this palette is, I just love this palette, okay? I don't know what to say. I love this palette. I really love it a lot. I love it. I've done probably like 6, 7, 8 looks with it. Probably more than that. I don't know how many I've done. But I love this palette. I love it. I'm glad I have my hands on it. And ABH, if you were to watch this, not that you will notice me, but if you watch this, please make me an ambassador. Please. I'm telling you, you made me in a palette. I love pink. I love sparkles. I love these colors to death. I love them so much. Thank you, ABH. Thank you. That is it for today's video. I am so glad that you guys have stuck by me for the year 2020, and I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for subscribing to my channel, for supporting this channel. I am hoping to do a lot more with this channel, and I thank you guys just for everything that you have done for me this year, and just for always being by my side. And as we grow together for 2021, I leave you with this: stay blessed, be you, stay true, and keep going. I love you guys. Goodbye.